My wife and her millionaire parents forced me to sign a humiliating prenup when I was poor. Years later, I got rich and discovered they conspired to nullify it and steal millions from me. But the same document that made me feel like trash ended up saving me and left them broke. I'm 38 years old. I run a property management business in Denver that generates, let's say, quite a bit of money. And I need to tell this story because what happened last year still has me processing everything. The thing is, my ex-wife and her parents basically tried to steal millions of dollars from me, and they only didn't succeed because, ironically, the same document they made me sign when I was poor ended up saving me when I became rich. I know it sounds like something out of a cheap novel, but I swear all of this happened exactly like this. I should start at the beginning, I guess. I met Courtney when I was 23 at a mutual friend's barbecue. I was working in it, making like 40 grand a year, living in a shitty apartment on the outskirts of Denver. You know, the typical career start where you can barely afford rent and food. Courtney was an elementary school teacher, and honestly, we connected right away. She was cute, smart. We had the same kind of sarcastic sense of humor, and we spent that whole night talking on the patio while everyone else was inside watching the game. We started dating, and honestly, the first few months were great. I didn't think much about her coming from a family with money. I mean, yeah, I knew her parents had cash, but she was a teacher. It wasn't like she was showing off or anything. The first real problem came about 6 months in when I met her parents. Raymond, her dad, owned several auto dealerships in the Denver and Boulder area, like those big places where they sell expensive brands. Sharon, her mom, had a boutique in Boulder that was basically her hobby because she didn't need to work. The first dinner at their house was awkward as hell. They had this huge mansion in Boulder, and I showed up in my 2008 Honda Civic that had like 180,000 miles on it. And just the act of parking that car there made me feel completely out of place. During dinner, Raymond wouldn't stop asking me about my career plans, my investments. What investments, dude? I could barely pay my credit card, and basically evaluating me like I was a used car he was considering buying. Sharon was more subtle, but just as intense, asking me about my family, where I grew up, what my parents did. My dad was a plumber, and my mom worked at a school as a secretary, and I could see in their faces that this didn't impress them at all. Courtney and I kept dating despite all that. She told me not to worry about her parents, that eventually they would accept me, that they were just protective. After 2 years together, I proposed. I had saved for months to buy a decent ring, nothing extravagant but something nice, and she said yes. I was super happy. Like, I thought finally things were going to get better with her family. But oh man, was I wrong. About 2 weeks after we got engaged, Raymond called me and asked me to come to his office. I thought maybe he wanted to talk about the wedding or something, maybe offer to help with expenses, you know? I arrived at his office at one of his dealerships, and he was there with his lawyer. He didn't even offer me something to drink, just told me to sit down and handed me a document. It was a prenuptial agreement. He explained. Well, more like informed me that if I was going to marry his daughter, I needed to sign this. The lawyer started explaining the terms to me, and basically it said that in case of divorce, each person kept what they had brought into the marriage and what they had earned individually during the marriage. No division of assets, no spousal support, nothing. I felt like absolute shit in that moment. The way Raymond looked at me, with that expression like, obviously we need to protect our daughter from a gold digger like you. I told him I needed time to think about it, to maybe consult with my own lawyer, and he basically told me that either I signed it that week or there would be no wedding. I went home and talked to Courtney, hoping she would take my side, tell her dad, to calm down, but she just said, Benjamin, it's just a paper, it doesn't mean anything, my parents just want to be sure, you would do the same if you had a daughter. And I, like an idiot, thought, well, I guess she's right. Besides, I have nothing to lose anyway, right? So, I signed the damn paper. We got married 6 months later. It was a big fancy wedding that Courtney's parents paid for completely, and honestly, it was beautiful. But the whole time I felt like a guest instead of the groom. Her family basically controlled everything, from the guest list to the menu, and when I tried to give my opinion about something, Sharon would look at me with that condescending smile and say, "Oh, Benjamin, let us handle this. We know how these things are done." My family was there, obviously, but they looked as uncomfortable as I felt. My mom told me before the ceremony, "Mijo, are you sure about this?" And I told her yes, that I loved Courtney, that her family would eventually get used to me. The first years of marriage were, let's say, normal. We bought a small house in a decent neighborhood, nothing fancy, but it was ours. I kept working in it. Courtney kept teaching, and honestly, we were happy. Or at least I thought we were. Her parents were still kind of cold to me, but I had gotten used to it. We spent Sundays at their house, and I basically sat there quietly while Raymond talked about his businesses and his investments. Like I didn't exist. Courtney didn't seem to notice or didn't care, and I didn't want to cause problems, so I just put up with it. Then, when I was like 28, something changed. I was working for a small tech startup, and as part of my compensation, they had given me stock options. Honestly, I didn't think much about it at the time. It was just part of the package. But it turns out the company grew fast, very fast, and about 2 years later, a bigger company acquired us. Suddenly, those stock options I had been accumulating were worth a lot of money. And when I say a lot, I mean several $1,000,000. It was completely surreal. Like, one day I was worrying about paying the credit card, and the next I had more money in my bank account than I had seen in my life. I didn't shout it from the rooftops or anything, but obviously Courtney and her family found out. I quit my IT job and decided to start my own property management business. I bought several apartment buildings in areas I knew were going to grow, hired people to handle the day-to-day, and basically built something that generated consistent passive income while I focused on finding more investment opportunities. Within about 3 years, I had multiplied that initial money several times over. I was no longer the poor guy making 40 grand a year. Now I was earning more in a month than I used to earn in a whole year. And guess what happened then? Suddenly, Raymond started treating me differently. He would call me asking for investment advice, asking me about real estate opportunities, wanting us to have lunch to talk about business. Sharon started showing me off to her friends, like, my son-in-law is a very successful businessman. He manages properties all over Denver. Courtney was happy too, obviously. We left the small house and bought something much bigger and nicer. She could buy the car she wanted. We went on expensive vacations. Everything seemed perfect, you know? I finally felt like I had earned her family's approval, that they no longer saw me as that guy without money who had married their daughter. But then, about 2 years after my financial situation had changed, Raymond invited me to dinner, just the two of us, which was weird because normally anything he had to tell me he said in front of everyone. We went to an expensive restaurant in Denver, one of those where the filet mignon costs like $80, and after ordering, he started with, "Benjamin, Sharon and I have been thinking, and we believe it's time to reconsider that prenuptial agreement you signed." I asked him what he meant, and he said, "Well, that document was made when you were young and had nothing, but now circumstances have changed significantly. It no longer reflects your current situation as a couple. It would be fairer if you dissolved it and had a normal marriage where everything is shared." I sat there trying to process what he was saying. Basically, now that I had money, they wanted to eliminate the only legal protection I had. I told him I needed to think about it, that I would have to talk to my lawyer, and he got kind of aggressive, like, "Why do you need to think about something like this? Don't you trust my daughter? Don't you believe in your marriage? It's just a paper, Benjamin," the same argument they used when they made me sign it in the first place. I told him I would discuss it with Courtney and we'd see, but honestly, I already knew I wasn't going to do anything about it. That prenup was the only thing protecting me, and after years of feeling inferior in that family, I wasn't going to give away that security just because now it was convenient for them. I talked to Courtney that night, hoping she would understand my position, but she took her parents' side immediately. She told me I was being paranoid, that her family only wanted what was best for us, that the fact that I didn't want to dissolve the prenup showed I didn't trust her. We had a big fight, and I basically told her, "Courtney, when we got married, your parents made me sign that document specifically because they thought I was a penniless gold digger. Now that I have more money than them, suddenly they want to cancel it. Doesn't that seem convenient to you?" She got really mad and didn't talk to me for 2 days. Things continued like that for months. Raymond and Sharon wouldn't stop bringing up the subject every time I saw them. Sharon started doing it more manipulatively, like, "Oh, Benjamin, I know you love our daughter. I know you have no intention of divorcing, so why keep that horrible document? It makes me feel like you think she's going to betray you somehow." Vanessa, Courtney's younger sister, was the only one who never said anything about it, which in retrospect should have given me a clue that something weird was going on. Then we got to the climax, which was like a year and a half ago. I got home from work on a Tuesday, and there were like 6 cars parked outside my house. I went in, and Courtney's entire family was there. Raymond, Sharon, Vanessa, even an uncle I barely knew. Courtney was sitting in the living room with her arms crossed. Raymond stood up and said, "We needed to have a serious family conversation." They basically did an intervention. Everyone took turns telling me why I should dissolve the prenup, how I was damaging my marriage, how I was being selfish and unfair to Courtney. It was absolutely surreal. Like, I have 6 people in my own house telling me what to do with my money and my marriage. I told them to get out of my house. Raymond got furious and started yelling at me, saying I was ungrateful, that his family had accepted me when I had nothing, that now that I was successful, I was arrogant. Sharon started crying, that manipulative kind of crying, saying they just wanted their daughter to be protected, and Courtney just sat there without saying anything in my defense. I told them again to leave, and eventually they did, all except Courtney, obviously. That night, Courtney and I had the worst fight of our marriage. She accused me of not loving her, of being controlling, of being obsessed with money. I told her that her family was trying to manipulate me and that she was letting them do it. We slept in separate rooms that night, and things were tense for weeks after that. But then something happened that changed everything. Vanessa called me one day and told me she needed to talk to me, that it was urgent. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop far from where we both lived. When she arrived, she looked super nervous, like, looking around as if someone was going to show up. She told me, "Benjamin, I need to tell you something because I can't keep watching them manipulate you like this." And then she told me everything. Courtney had been having an affair for the past 8 months with a guy she met at the gym. Raymond and Sharon knew about it. Vanessa had overheard them talking about it. The reason they were so desperate to eliminate the prenup wasn't because they wanted me to trust Courtney more. It was because they knew she was going to ask for a divorce soon, and they wanted to make sure she could take half of my money. I sat there in that coffee shop, feeling like someone had kicked me in the stomach. Vanessa showed me some text messages between her and her mom that basically confirmed everything. Sharon had told Vanessa not to say anything, that it was Courtney's business, that they needed to handle the situation carefully to protect Courtney's financial future. Vanessa told me she was so sorry, that I had always thought I was a good person, that she couldn't stay quiet watching them do this to me. I hired a private investigator the next day. I didn't want to believe it was true. Like, part of me hoped Vanessa was wrong or had misunderstood something. But nope. Within 2 weeks, the investigator had photos, hotel records, text messages, everything. Courtney had been seeing this guy, let's call him Chad because honestly that was the kind of name he would have, regularly. They met at hotels, went to restaurants in nearby towns where they thought no one would know them, all the classic sordid affair stuff. What hurt me the most wasn't even the infidelity itself, though obviously that was devastating, but the fact that her entire family knew and had conspired to rob me, while they looked me in the face during those Sunday dinners, while Raymond asked me for investment advice, while Sharon showed me off to her friends. They all knew Courtney was cheating on me and were actively working to make sure she could walk away with millions of dollars when she finally left me. I confronted Courtney one night when she came home late. I put all the photos on the kitchen table and told her, "Do you want to explain this to me?" She went pale, tried to deny everything at first. But when I told her I had evidence of everything, she finally admitted the affair. She started with the typical excuses, that I worked a lot, that I was never emotionally present, that she felt lonely. I told her that was all bullshit. That the real reason she and her family had been pressuring me about the prenup was because they knew what was happening. She started crying, saying, "No, that wasn't true," but I knew she was lying. I hired the best divorce attorney in Denver the next day. We filed the papers that week with all the evidence of adultery. And here's where that prenup Raymond and Sharon wanted to eliminate so badly saved me completely. According to the terms that Raymond's own lawyer had drafted years, Earlier, each person kept what they had brought into the marriage and what they had earned individually during the marriage. I had brought basically nothing, but all the money I had generated afterward, the properties, the investments, the business, everything was in my name and had been acquired with my money. The house we shared I had bought completely. The car she drove was in my name. Everything was in my name because I had bought it with my money. But even with the prenup, in Colorado there would normally be some division of marital assets. The difference here was the evidence of adultery. My lawyer argued that Courtney had violated the marriage vows, and therefore had forfeited any right to assets acquired during the marriage. With all the evidence we had, the judge agreed. Courtney got nothing. Not the house, not the cars, not a portion of my business, not spousal support, absolutely nothing. Raymond and Sharon tried to get involved in the legal process, hired their own lawyers to fight, but there was nothing to be done. The prenup was airtight, ironically because their own lawyer had made it so strict years earlier when they thought I was the one who might try to take advantage of their daughter. And the evidence of infidelity was indisputable. My lawyer basically told them they could fight all they wanted, but they would only waste money on legal fees because the outcome wasn't going to change. The divorce was finalized about 6 months later. Courtney had to move out of the house, obviously. I heard through the grapevine that she moved back in with her parents for a while. But here comes the almost poetic part of this whole situation. Remember Chad, the guy she was having the affair with? Turns out he thought Courtney was rich, or that at least she was going to be rich after the divorce. When he found out she hadn't gotten anything in the divorce settlement, he literally left her. He told her he couldn't be with someone who came with so much drama and, no, financial stability. I found this out from Vanessa, who kept in touch with me, even though that obviously caused her family to shut her out of the circle for a while. About 3 months after the divorce was finalized, Courtney showed up at my office. My assistant called me and told me my ex-wife was there and wanted to see me. I told her to let her in because honestly, I was curious what she wanted. She came in looking completely different from how I remembered her. Like, thinner, with dark circles. Clearly she wasn't doing well. She started with how sorry she was, that she had made the worst mistake of her life, that she loved me, that could we try again? That she would go to therapy, that she would do whatever was necessary, that her family would have nothing to do with us if we got back together. I sat there listening to her and honestly felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, not even satisfaction. Just emptiness. I told her no, that what had happened between us couldn't be fixed, that she and her family had shown exactly who they were, and that I had moved on. She started crying, saying please, that she had given up everything, that Chad had left her, that she had no one. And I basically told her, Courtney, you didn't give up anything. Everything was taken from you because you betrayed our marriage and conspired with your family to rob me. There's a difference. I asked her to leave, and when she didn't move, I called security, and they escorted her out of the building. I heard Raymond and Sharon are also going through financial problems. Apparently, they had been depending on some business deals that didn't work out, and without my help with investments and advice, things got tough. Vanessa told me they had sold Sharon's boutique and were considering selling one of the dealerships. I'm not gonna lie. There's a part of me that feels a certain satisfaction knowing they're struggling, especially after how they treated me for years. As for me, my business keeps growing. I met someone new about 6 months ago, a woman who has her own successful career in finance and who doesn't need or want anything from my money. We're going slow, no rush, and honestly, it's refreshing to be with someone who sees me as an equal instead of as a bank check or a charity project. I haven't introduced her to anyone in my family yet because I'm taking things slowly, but so far everything feels different in a good way. You know what's the craziest thing about all this? That prenup that made me feel so humiliated when I was 25, that document that basically told me I wasn't good enough for their family, that paper they made me sign as a condition to marry their daughter, ended up being exactly what protected me from losing everything I had built. Raymond probably kicks himself every day knowing that his own plan to protect his family from me ended up protecting me from them. I still think about all this sometimes, especially late at night when I can't sleep. I wonder if Courtney ever really loved me, or if I was always just someone safe while she figured out what to do with her life. I wonder at what exact moment her family decided I was now worth manipulating instead of just despising. I wonder if there would have been any way to save the marriage if I had known about the affair earlier, though honestly I think not. Because the real problem wasn't just the infidelity, but the entire systematic betrayal by her and her family. What I do know is that I learned a lot about the value of protecting yourself, about not letting others make you feel inferior because you have less money than them, and about how people show their true character when money is involved. Raymond and Sharon treated me like garbage when I was poor, then wanted to be my best friends when I got rich, and finally tried to rob me when they had the chance. Courtney, the woman who promised to love me for better or worse, betrayed me in the most basic way possible and then only wanted to come back when she realized the alternative was worse. A few weeks ago, Courtney tried to contact me again by email. It was a long message about how she had been in therapy, how she had reflected on everything, how she now understood the damage she had caused me. She asked for my forgiveness, not to get back together, just for her own peace of mind, she said. I read the entire email and then deleted it without responding. I don't owe her my forgiveness or my time or my words. I already spent enough years of my life on that family, and now every day I spend without them is a better day. My business is valued at more now than Raymond will probably earn in the rest of his life. I have properties all over Colorado, and I'm expanding to other states. Every month that passes, I'm better off financially and more stable emotionally. And I built all of this myself, with my work, my vision, my risk. Nobody gave me anything. Nobody helped me get here. And definitely nobody is going to take it from me. Sometimes when I drive through Boulder and see the area where they lived, I remember that first dinner where I felt so out of place in their mansion. Now my house is bigger than theirs. My bank account has more zeros. My business generates more income. But most importantly, I no longer care about impressing them or earning their approval. I learned that validation from people like Raymond and Sharon is worth nothing because it's based solely on what they can get from you, not on who you really are as a person. And that prenup, that damn document Raymond's lawyer made me sign in his office while he looked at me with contempt, is now framed in my office. Not because I'm vindictive, well, maybe a little, but because it's a reminder that sometimes the things that are designed to hurt you end up being exactly what you need to survive. It's a reminder that when people show you who they are the first time, you should believe them. And it's a reminder that protecting yourself isn't mistrust, it's intelligence.